Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Broken Out by the Human by L.E. Eldridge. Narrated by Simon Dornet and Kayden Lukakis. 1. Wilder. "Just sign here," the delivery guy said as he pointed to the signature line. Wilder took the tablet and signed his name. He had just finished unloading the last of this shipment into his shop, and he was excited for the new goodies. He'd ordered a mystery haul from an antique auction, a whole bundle of stuff, and while he was sure a lot of it wouldn't sell, it was always where he found the best hidden gems. It was Monday, so his antique store, the Lost and Found, was closed. He had to pay extra to get it delivered so quickly, since he'd ordered it 2 days ago, but it had been worth it. He loved getting new hauls. He started combing through the boxes, organizing the things he recognized and the ones he knew he couldn't sell. He even found a nice vest he considered keeping. It looked to be from the 20s and had the tags to match, and the condition was great. Anything he wasn't sure of, he set aside, planning to try to find some information later on their origins. Finally, he reached the last box, lifting it with a grunt and plopping it on the table. It was considerably heavier than the others, which made him hopeful he'd gotten a big-ticket item. He carefully cut the box open to reveal what looked to be a vase. He pulled it out and looked it over. It wasn't like any vase he had seen before, black with purple swirls that almost seemed to move in the light. He felt strangely drawn to it, but couldn't explain why. He left the vase sitting in the back and went about taking photos and pricing anything he knew would sell. He had an eye for these things, which made this business fairly smooth sailing for him. Once he was done shelving everything and taking a few more photos, he headed upstairs. He got about halfway up the staircase before the vase came back to his mind. For some reason, he decided to go back downstairs and grab it. Once he got to his apartment above his shop, he set it on his kitchen table. Though his apartment was a bit small, it worked for him, and it kept him close to work. He had done a lot to make the space his own, decorated it with things he'd found over the years, painting the walls in bright colors and stuffing it full of eccentric furniture. Wilder pulled out his laptop and got to work searching for other vases like this one. Normally, these antique shows had pretty recognizable things, but no matter how hard he looked, he couldn't find any style that matched. Puzzled, he set his laptop aside and stared at the vase. Now that he really looked at it, it looked less like it shifted in the light and more like it was molten, moving on its own. Whatever technique was used to make it must have been special. He still couldn't figure out why he felt so drawn to it, but something about it was mesmerizing. Wilder had always been drawn to shiny things. He was so lost in thought he jumped when his phone dinged on the table. It was Mark asking if he wanted to go out. Wilder was planning on hunkering down with a bottle of wine and a new documentary he spotted about a new discovery from the first Egyptian settlement. But now that he had the offer, it felt lame to stay in. Wilder and Mark always went out together. They had similar tastes and no interest in each other, which made it easy to find a good time for a night. He contemplated the idea for a few more minutes, his gaze drifting back to the vase. It was obvious he needed to get out. He was obsessing over a vase. Reaching for his phone, he shot out a message to Mark, telling him he'd be there. He glanced at the vase again before standing, making his way to his bedroom to shower and change. He decided to go with a pink crop top and a pair of ripped jeans, adding a bit of smudged eyeliner and some gel to his hair before calling his rideshare. Grabbing his coat and keys, he made his way out the door, but not before taking one final glance at the vase. Shaking his head at his own ridiculousness, he left. Wilder stumbled out of the car, thanking the driver while almost tripping on the curb. The world spun for a moment before righting itself. It was possible he had gone a bit too hard tonight. He only meant to have one Cosmo, but then Mark ordered shots, and so did some of the guys they hung out with. Mark also brought a joint that they'd shared in the parking lot before he took off. Wilder remembered going into the bathroom with someone. He was cute enough, Not quite as large as Wilder normally liked his men, but he was good for a quick hookup. Mark had gone home with some guy. He texted him in the car to make sure he was alive, and set a reminder on his phone to text him tomorrow. They shared locations, too, so they could find the other one if anything happened. Wilder's guy had asked to take him home, but he respectfully declined. He had already gotten off, and that was all he was looking for. Well, that wasn't fully true. He was always looking for the one. It sounded idealistic, even to him, but it was the one thing missing in his life. He had a stable business, a home, friends. He just didn't have the love he craved so badly. When he'd turned 18, bright-eyed and new, he allowed himself to fall hard and fast every time, and every time it ended up being all for naught. Either the two just didn't fit, or the other guy cheated, or Wilder found out he had a wife. That one had truly been a disaster. From then, he decided no more love, not until he found the one. And he knew he would. Or, at least, he hoped. He tried not to dwell on his loneliness as he attempted to unlock the shop door. He dropped the keys twice, almost falling over picking them back up, before he finally managed to get the door open. Making sure he locked it behind him, Wilder trudged up the stairs into his apartment. He swayed as he moved, turning on lights and trying to get to his room. He managed to get changed, but knew if he didn't drink water, the massive hangover he expected was going to be way worse, and he needed to open the store tomorrow. Pulling himself out of bed, he moved to the kitchen. On his way, he tripped on his own feet, but caught himself on the dining room table, and, as he did, he watched the vase tilt with bated breath. For a moment, he thought it would tilt back, but instead, he watched in slow motion as it continued to fall. Wilder tried to reach for it, but it was no use. It slipped on the linoleum and broke into 1,000 pieces. He stared at the mess. Fuck. He was sure the vase was valuable, and now it was gone. Suddenly, the broken vase started emitting purple smoke, and Wilder jolted. Was there some kind of dangerous chemical in there? Was it on fire? Before he could figure out what to do, the smoke got thicker, starting to form a shape. When it cleared, he could see a large purple figure standing there. No, not standing. Floating. The man was massive, at least 7 feet tall, with purple skin and long white hair, with horns sticking out from the sides of his head. He didn't have legs, a smoked tail in its place. Looking closely, he noticed he had an extra set of arms he was currently stretching. Wilder fell back on his ass, looking up in awe. This may have been the alcohol talking, but why did he think the large purple figure with 4 arms was sort of hot? Shaking that thought away, he moved to his feet. Who are you?" he asked. The man's eyes landed on him. "Thank you for freeing me. In return, I will grant you 1 wish for anything you may desire." Wilder blinked, not sure what was happening. Maybe there was something a bit more than weed in those joints. "What are you?" "Do not bother with the details, human. Ask for your wish, and I shall be on my way." Wilder started laughing uncontrollably. "Wow, this is either the craziest dream or the strongest weed I've ever had." "I am no illusion. Make your wish, and I'll leave." He continued laughing, wiping his now tearful eyes. "Okay, well, I'm going to bed, unless I'm already in bed. I hope I remember this tomorrow. You're so hot." He hadn't meant to say that last bit out loud, but it didn't matter. It was just a dream. Or an illusion. It was still a hot one, though. "Human, wait." But he didn't listen. He went in his room and flopped on his bed. Big purple man. He laughed at himself. His mind was really playing tricks on him, though part of him hoped he would still be there in the morning. But that wasn't possible. 2. Wilder. Wilder woke with a killer headache. He forgot about the water. And now he was paying for it. He tried to recall why he hadn't grabbed it, only to remember the purple illusion in his kitchen. Goddess, he was hot. The perfect mirage. He quickly texted Mark to make sure he was safe, glad when he got a text back with lots of water droplets and heart-eye emojis. Knowing he was okay, Wilder could get up and deal with the cause of his hallucinations, the broken vase. He managed to pull himself together and get dressed for work, though it was a sweatpants and sweater day for sure. When he walked out of his room, he screamed when he saw a large purple figure sitting on his couch. He was no longer floating, now with full legs covered in loose-fitting white pants that draped off his body. He was still purple, and he still had 4 arms. And he was still just as hot. The large purple man rolled his eyes. "We've been through this, human, or did you forget?" His eyes narrowed, the attitude making the shock wear off. "I was drunk and thought you weren't real." "Well, I'm very real. Now, make your wish." Wilder blinked, trying to recall the details of the night before. He remembered him mentioning a wish for saving him. What did that mean? "It means you freed me from my vessel," the man answered. Apparently, Wilder had asked that question aloud. "For that, I owe you a wish, and once you make it, I will leave." Wilder blinked. He didn't have enough coffee in his system to handle this. "There's no need to give me anything for saving you," he said. "All I did was drop a vase." Granted, he was glad he did and didn't accidentally sell him. "No, you don't understand." He was standing now, making his enormous size known, towering over Wilder in a way that overwhelmed him. "It's not optional. It's a part of the deal. You free me, I give you a wish." Though he felt a bit overwhelmed, he wasn't backing down. "Well, I don't want your wish." He could see the man getting visibly angry. "Human, No, I need to get to work. I can't deal with this now. Just stay." With that, Wilder ran, down to his shop and away from the purple man whose name he didn't even know.
3. Zephyr. Zephyr scowled as the small human ran downstairs. He got up to follow, but then thought better of it. Maybe he just needed the day to consider his wish. Hopefully it would just be the day. Zephyr was sick of existing around humans. They were selfish beings who only wanted money and power. He couldn't even remember the last wish he granted. He'd done so many, and being trapped was essentially a memory reset. Being put in a vessel was jarring and always caused memory loss. It was essentially a meditative sleep until he was released, probably an evolutionary trait to keep his kind from going mad. He had first been contained about 100 years ago while traveling in a human city. He was meeting a witch there, hoping to find a more powerful cloaking spell, but she tricked him. She made him confess his true name and then sold him off to the highest bidder. Since then, he'd been passed around. His name and magic sold over and over. He'd only been out for about a week at a time before he was put right back into his ceramic prison. How did he end up here? This human didn't seem like the rest. Normally, they expected him. No, that didn't matter. All that mattered was getting out of this contract and getting away. Looking out the window, he could tell he was somewhere highly populated, and he had zero interest in that. He needed to lay low for a long time. He thought about the man who found him. He was cute in his own way, with his brown skin and a mop of curls atop his head. He had eyes that looked almost golden, and when he tilted his head, he looked a bit like a puppy, but when he talked back, he was more like a wildcat. He also smelled. different. Zephyr couldn't figure it out, but it was as if he just came from a bakery, laced with a sugary scent, reminding him of all the sweets he used to love. Even though he was intrigued, he needed to get this human to make his wish and let him go. Zephyr paced the apartment, waiting for the small human to return. Zephyr knew he was directly downstairs. He could hear him walking around, could hear other humans walking around. The small human must run some sort of shop, and he was right above it. Wonderful. Looking around, he took in all the decor. There was a mix of vintage designs and pastel colors, mirrors that looked as if they were melting down the walls, pink cabinets set against a bright purple wall. The living room had signs, photos, and art arranged all over the space, barely any room between. There were even crystals dangling from chains at different heights all around the ceiling. It should have all looked overwhelming and bad, but it actually looked nice, aesthetic in a way. Zephyr wished he could just leave, but parting with whoever he owed would cause immense pain, until it eventually killed him. Wishbringers were gifted with immense power. Power no one should be able to wield. The catch being that most of it could only be used when granting wishes. He only had access to small things like shape-shifting, and it drained him to use it too often. The only way to be free is for a Wishbringer to bind themselves to another. Many of his kind chose to do this, but it left them at the mercy of their partner. Though it gave them full access to their gifts, it also meant they had to grant any wish the other person wanted at any time. Zephyr had seen many people change once they became paired with a Wishbringer, even ones who were fated, and he had no interest in that. That's why he planned to stay alone. If he stayed away from humans, stayed away from other paranormal beings, he wouldn't need to rely on anyone nor be left to their will. His thoughts were interrupted by the opening of the door as the small human walked through, his curls messy and his clothes rumpled. He wore a sage sweater with black snakes on the shoulders and a pair of black sweatpants, looking very different than he did the previous night. His golden eyes shifted to Zephyr and widened once again, as if he had expected him not to be there. "I'm still real, human," Zephyr commented. He jumped, and then his eyes narrowed. "Great. I can't wait to spend more time with you and your pleasant personality." Zephyr bristled. "You wouldn't have to deal with me at all if you would make your wish." The small human crossed his arms. Zephyr knew he was supposed to look angry, but somehow just looked cute. "And how am I supposed to know it's not one of those tricky wishes? One where I make it and you twist my words and leave me worse off? I've seen the Twilight Zone, and no thank you." "You saved me," he stated, still trying to parse his meaning. "I will give you a fair wish. Whatever you want." He looked to consider the offer briefly, but shook his head. All his emotions were clearly written on his face, which was how Zephyr knew the gears in his head were turning. "Can I wish for more wishes?" Zephyr sighed, trying to find his patience. "No, there are few rules, but that is one of them." He smirked slightly, his whole face lighting up. "Shucks, that's what I was thinking. Guess I need to think more." The infuriating little human sauntered to the kitchen, leaving Zephyr to stew. In all his time on this earth, he'd never had a human speak to him like this. They normally cowered in fear, even if they knew he couldn't harm them. Humans feared him, but apparently not this one. "What are you doing?" Zephyr finally snapped. The small human was bent over behind the counter, his head popping up to smile at him. The smile was too bright, too kind. "Making dinner. I'm starving. Skipped lunch. Do you want some?" "What are you making?" He stood all the way up with a pan in his hand. Chicken tacos. He started to say no, but stopped himself. While he didn't need human food, he did enjoy it very much. I guess, at the very least, it could be an opportunity to convince him to make his wish. He stood to the side as he watched the human walk around his small kitchen, totally unbothered by him. He'd never been around a single human for this long. Normally they left him alone until they were prepared to make their wish, meaning his social skills were severely lacking. This was going to be a long night.
4. Wilder. Wilder had no clue how he was functioning properly. He could feel Zephyr's assessing eyes as he moved around the kitchen. Luckily, this was a dinner he'd made many times, enough that it was second nature to him. It would hopefully go much better than his day at the store. It was Tuesday, so it was the slowest day for the store. There had only been a few customers, mostly just regulars who came in weekly. Even in February, the snow still fell outside, which made business even slower. He focused a lot on organizing, packing orders, and social media during the slow times, but he couldn't concentrate. He knocked over an entire rack of clothes, dropped and almost cracked his phone, and got scared by an older woman he didn't hear coming. By the time 6 rolled around, he was shocked he survived the day. As much as he didn't want to admit it, he was excited to go upstairs and see the Purple Man. And now he was in his kitchen, watching Wilder's every move. He should have expected to be asked about the wish, but in all honesty, he hadn't thought about it once. His focus was solely on the presence he felt upstairs. After what felt like an eternity, food was ready, and he managed to get the meal together and on the table in one piece. He kept his focus on his food until he heard the chair across from him creak. The Purple Man was so large he made Wilder's furniture look like it was made for dolls. "Think about that wish anymore?" he asked as he took a bite. Wilder swallowed. "Nope." He watched as the man visibly bristled, and Wilder bit his bottom lip to keep from smiling. Something about his anger made him smile, which didn't feel normal. "How could you have not? I am offering you anything you could ever want. Money, power, a pony, anything." Wilder crossed his arms with his own scowl, though he doubted it was as intimidating. "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize I was inconveniencing you by saving your ass from a jar. Sorry that I'm not sure what life-altering wish I may want so suddenly." He could swear he saw amusement flash in the Purple Man's eyes, but it was gone just as quickly. "You truly are a wildcat, aren't you?" Wilder flushed under the unusual comment, but quickly shook his head. "Why does it matter if I make the wish? Can't I just forgo it and let you go?" He shook his head. A look crossed over his face Wilder didn't understand. "That's not how it works. Just make the wish." Wilder's scowl deepened. He didn't like being told what to do, certainly not by this big four-armed man. "No." Zephyr mumbled something Wilder couldn't make out, and the room fell silent. He considered making his wish then and there, but still felt deep inside it was a bad idea. They began eating again, the silence between them bugging him. While he was used to being alone, he always had the TV on in the back or music playing. Silence had never sat well with him. "What's your name?" Wilder finally asked when he couldn't stand it anymore. The man froze, looking him right in the eyes. Something about his stare was scrutinizing, and it made Wilder feel as if he was under a microscope. "You may call me Zephyr," he said. "Zephyr," Wilder parroted, testing the syllables on his tongue. "And what should I call you?" he asked. "My name's Wilder." He blinked. "Okay, Wilder." "And what are you?" He sighed, but didn't look actually angry. "I am a Wishbringer." Wilder released a giggle on accident, drawing a confused look from Zephyr. "Sorry," he said shyly. It's just that Wishbringer is really on the nose." He nodded. "The name has changed over time, as they do." Wilder averted his gaze back to his plate, sure his face was fully flushed by now. He felt like he had run out of things to talk about, even though he had so many questions. He could ask what his kind used to be called, wanted to ask how he got inside the vase in the first place, but that felt like a sore subject. "Where did your legs come from?" he blurted out when he couldn't think of anything else. Wilder's eyes widened as he realized what he'd said, wished he could shove the words back into his mouth. Zephyr, for his part, didn't look offended. "I can shift form to suit the environment. The smoke makes it hard to sit." That made sense to him. "That's handy." "Indeed." They finished eating without Wilder blurting anything else strange. As he looked at the clock, he realized it was still early, but the awkwardness was killing him. Zephyr didn't seem bothered a bit, but he was. "Want dessert?" he asked. Zephyr turned so quickly, Wilder worried he'd hurt himself. "What kind of dessert?" Wilder opened the fridge. "I have some cream puffs left." His friend Sarah, who worked at the bakery down the street, had brought him some of the extras. They made the best cream puffs. When he turned, Zephyr was there, right behind him. He could feel the heat of the large man's body radiating off him, caressing his body. "What kind?" This was the first time Wilder saw anything other than contempt in his eyes. It wasn't an outright expression that changed his entire face, but there was a light to his eyes that wasn't there before. "I have pistachio, ube, and cookies and cream." He turned to offer him some and realized they were only a few feet apart. Zephyr examined his options, looking like a kid in a candy store. He plucked one of the pistachio ones out of the box and popped it in his mouth, his face contorting, almost like he was holding back a smile. Wilder picked up a cookies and cream one and took a bite. After he took the second, he licked some of the cream from his finger, sucking it into his mouth and pulling it out with a pop. When he looked back, Zephyr's eyes were on his, holding an expression he couldn't read. He almost wanted to call it desire, but that couldn't be right. They stood there and finished the box. Luckily, he had 6, so they got one of each. Every time Zephyr picked up a new one, he got this look of delight on his face that Wilder knew he could get addicted to. And when the big purple man licked some of the filling off his lips, he almost melted into the floor. Wilder threw the box away, leaving them both standing there as the awkwardness of the whole thing pulled at him. He was never at a loss for words, but right now he didn't have any. "I think I'm going to bed," he said, slipping toward his room. Before he disappeared, he asked, "Do you need anything?" "Just for you to think hard on your wish," he said. Wilder huffed. "I'll get right on that." With that, he shut the door and leaned against it, trying to figure out what the hell he should do.
5. Zephyr. Zephyr stared at the books Wilder had left for him. That morning he had brought out a whole stack from his room and told him he could read anything he wanted. He also showed him how the TV worked, the different shows he could watch, though Zephyr was uninterested in watching humans move around a screen. Though he was finally free, he was stuck in this small apartment, almost worse than being vesseled. Well, that wasn't exactly fair. He had been saved from a potentially worse fate with Wilder. The problem with the wishes was that he had no control over them, and the rules regarding them were loose. Most people who sought out his kind sought them out for heinous things he couldn't say no to. He guessed being here wasn't the worst thing that could have happened to him. He still wasn't sure why he hadn't just told Wilder the truth. He was given the perfect opportunity to tell him they couldn't separate while the wish contract was in play, but he didn't. Though he still detested being here, something held him back. Even though his thoughts were a mess, he was bored out of his mind. He'd been stuck up here for days and needed to...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?